Good morning. Welcome, all of you all, students of second year English Literature, Government College, Chaksu. This is Anshu Sharma, and today we are going to begin with Thomas Gray, who is again a very popular English poet and who belongs to a time period before the Romantics, before the earlier Romantics, and he has been known as the precursor of the Romantic age because he preceded the younger as well as the older Romantic poets, and very often he is known as the transitional Romantic poet. Now, Thomas Gray was born in 1716 in London, England, and he died in 1771 again in Cambridge, England. And some of his major works include Ode on a Distant Prospect of Eton College, which was written in 1747. And interestingly, this was his school where he did his he received his primary education, and he has very fond memories of Eton. So those were, you can say, the happy days of his life. Then there is Ode on the Spring, which was written in 1748. Elegy written in a country churchyard in 1751. This is part of your course. And Essays and Criticism, which was written in 1911. Thomas Gray is generally regarded as one of the major poets of 18th century, and he kind of provided a bridge between the poetic sensibility of his own generation and the romantic revolution of the future. He is just before the Romantic age, you can say that. He is at the beginning of the Romantic period. And he combines in a unique way a classic perfection of the form that was used, that was popular, which was typical of the Augustan era, and with the subject matter and attitude that are clearly romantic. So he is like combining the form of the previous age, that is the Augustan era, and the content is of the future age, that is the Romantic age. And Gray's special gift for precise and memorable language was the result of, you can say, rigid discipline in the long years that he put in studying both Greek and Roman literature. And because he was a poet, he was a person who was steeped in the past. His ideas and emotions were kind of, an amalgamation of both the past as well as the future, because he looked into the future as well, and he was the content of his writings was purely romantic. Then Gray was an extremely self-critical writer who published only 13 poems in his lifetime. Now that is quite, in comparison to the other romantic poets, you can see that 13 poems is not much. And despite the fact that he was a very popular poet, yet the production of his writings is very limited. And he was also, because of the quality of his writings, because of his learning, he had been offered the post of the poet laureate in 1757, which was very commendable. But he declined this offer. Then Gray went to Eton College, as I said, for his studies, where both his uncles were already working. One was Robert Antrobus and the other was William Antrobus. And it was Robert who became Gray's first teacher and helped inspire in him a love for botany and science. And his other uncle, that is William, he became his tutor. And Gray recalls his school days as a time of great happiness. Very, memorable days he spent at Eton College. And it was a time of great happiness. And this is very evident in his Ode on a Distant Prospect of Eton College. This ode has been particularly written in memory of his college days, his school days, his earlier period. Then Gray was a delicate and scholarly boy who spent most of his time reading, and he did not much participated in athletics. He lived with his uncles and made three very close friends in Eton. One was Horace Walpole, who was the son of the Prime Minister Robert Walpole. The other friend was Thomas Ashton, and the third was Richard West. These four friends, they prided themselves on their sense of style, sense of humor, and appreciation of beauty, and they were called the Quadruple Alliance because there were four of them together throughout their lives. Then in 1734, Gray went up to Cambridge for further studies, but he found the curriculum very dull. The masters, he felt, were mad with pride, and co-fellows he found to be sleepy, drunken, dull, very illiterate beings. So he was not very happy to be at Cambridge. But his family wanted him to study law. And he, on the other hand, was more interested in classical and modern literature. So it was in 1738 that he, along with his old school friend, as I have mentioned, Horace Walpole, went on a grand tour of Europe, as was the custom in those days for young men. This I have mentioned earlier also. Most of the earlier poets that we have studied, that whether it was Keats or whether it was Byron, you must have noticed that this was the trend in those days, that people would go for they would go for tour over all over Europe, and it was a way of learning. You can say it was a way of absorbing different cultures, absorbing different architecture, culture, and whatever the ways of life, popular folklore, the way of living, and they kind of they opened up to ideas, and it was kind of mandatory for young men of those days. But this tour ended in a sour note because these two friends, they parted ways. Apparently both of them had kind of a difference because their interests clashed. It was Walpole who enjoyed, who was more into fashionable parties. He wanted to have lead a very gregarious kind of life there. Whereas Gray, on the other hand, he wanted to visit all the historical places and museums, essentially all the antiquities. Now, you can see on your screens right now, antiquities, what does it mean? Antiquities are objects from antiquity, especially the civilization of the Mediterranean, the classical antiquity of Greece and Rome, ancient Egypt, and other ancient Near Eastern cultures. So it was all study about old architecture, study about the earlier period, study about the lifestyle, about the religion, culture, social setup. It was all about studies of the antiques, you can say, antiquities. So that is where the word has come out from. So Gray was more interested in visiting museums, in visiting archaeological sites, and absorbing the cultural aspects basically. But Walpole, being a young person, and naturally, as it happens with young people, they want to have, they want to enjoy life. So he wanted to enjoy parties and have lead a carefree kind of life there while they were on this tour. But because both their interests clashed, so they parted ways. But after a few years, because as I have already mentioned, they were very good friends, the two came together again. And it was Walpole who helped publish Gray's poetry. So they were, after all, friends. So they couldn't be kept apart for very long. And Gray seriously began writing poetry in 1742, mainly after the death of his close friend Richard West. Now, Richard West was the fourth friend, and Gray was especially close to him. And when he died, he was very hurt, or you can say it really, it kind of hurt him a lot, it pained him a lot, and he wrote poetry on his death. And he was part of the charmed circle of the four school friends at Eton. And a sonnet on the death of Richard West was inspired by his death. And when in Cambridge, he began a self-directed program of literary study, as mentioned earlier. And he became one of the most learned men of his time. Gray's family wanted him to, you know, study law, pursue law, but as I have mentioned earlier, that he was more prone to classical and modern literature, and this is what he ultimately did. And he spent most of his life as a scholar in Cambridge, and only later in his life did he began traveling again. So after a period, he started traveling again, and though he was one of the least productive poets, because I have earlier we have noticed that he has written only 13 poems. So he was one of the least productive poets, and his collected works were published during his lifetime, but they just amount to less than 1,000 lines. That's it. Though the poem that is part of your curriculum, that is Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, that is pretty long poem, but overall he has just penned around 1,000 lines, and he is regarded as the foremost English language poet of the mid 18th century. Then in 1757, he was offered the post of poet laureate, which he refused. And Gray was so self critical and fearful of failure that he published only very little during his lifetime. And once he wrote, these are his own words, he has written this, that he feared that his collected works would be mistaken for the works of a flea. Now, this is like quite, very clearly this states that how unsure he was of his talent, how unsure he was of his genius as a poet, and he's comparing his works to that of a flea. Now, what is a flea? A flea is an insect. So just imagine, insect is what? It's a minuscule thing. It's a very small, tiny, insignificant thing, which with just a swap of your hand, you can kill a insect in an instant, in a second. So that is what he felt. So this is very clear, and therefore he somehow did not write much. And Horace Walpole said that he never wrote anything easily, but things of humor. This is to quote Horace Walpole. Then Gray came to be known as one of the graveyard poets. Now, this is again one term that has been used for the category of poets who belong to the late 18th century. And these poets included Oliver Goldsmith, William Cowper, and Christopher Smart, and of course Thomas Gray. So these were the poets who were known as the graveyard poets, because maybe they concentrated upon ideas of death, of mortality, of frailty of human life, and the eternal truth, that is death. So their subject matter was serious, their subject matter was not very happy, so therefore they were known as the graveyard poets. The graveyard poets also were also known as the churchyard poets, and there were a number of pre-romantic poets of the 18th century characterized by their gloomy meditations on mortality, on life, on death. And as the century progressed, graveyard poetry increasingly expressed a feeling for the sublime and uncanny, and an antiquarian interest in ancient English. Now, ancient English, again, Thomas Gray was always interested in antiquities. Right, and so therefore this, you can say, was a typical characteristic of these poets. And they had increasingly, these poets, they had interest in the ancient English poetic forms and folk poetry. So they were kind of going back into time. They were looking at the folklore, they were looking into the folk poetry, they were looking into the ancient English tradition, and from there their poems, their poetry was inspired. And these graveyard poets are often recognized as precursors of the Gothic literary genre. Gothic literary genre is not part of your curriculum as of now, but if you go on to do your post-graduation, then you will have a lot of work which falls under the category of Gothic literature. And these poets were also, as mentioned earlier, were precursors to the Romantic movement. And the particular poem, which is, as you can see once again on your screens, Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, this particular poem is a very, very pertinent, a very stark, very clear example of the graveyard poetry, or you can say the churchyard poetry that belonged to this period, and that was kind of a domain of these four poets that I have mentioned. And Thomas Gray, you can say, is one of the major prominent poets who belong to this particular category of graveyard poets. So, this is a very short introduction that I have given to you about Thomas Gray, and this can always go into as a part of your introduction to any of the questions that you have to face or you have to write for your exam. So, I have also shared a detailed PDF. Please go through that, learn it. If there's any question or any query, any confusion about any term, you can always get back to me on WhatsApp. Please go through your notes, listen to the video. Hope you have a good day. And thank you once again for your patient listening. Bye bye.